Hello everybody. So we've moved inside for the winter because it's now pretty chilly outside. I may get lucky and have another day or two outside, but at least for now, we will be inside, and that's all right. So today, Marshmallow's trying to join me on my chair. Doesn't really matter if I'm inside or outside. There's always a cat trying to get in my lap. Although when I'm inside, there's also a child trying to get in my lap. So, you know. There's Marshmallow. He's my good boy. Let's see. So, things we need to talk about today. The year of self-care is ongoing. So if you have not yet put up a social media post and used the hashtag BSFE or Black Sheep Fiber Emporium, either one works, and made sure that that is a public post, then please go do so. And remember, you can enter more than once every month. You can enter 100 times if you want. I don't really care. I haven't had anyone enter 100 times in a single month, but just mentioning. It's available, and it's okay if you do that. Anyway, just let everybody know we're still doing our year of self-care. This month was all about being thankful for the things that people have taught us, and I know that I have used a lot of skills that I was taught by many different people throughout this month. So, and I continue to seek out the advice of different friends and colleagues who are spinners and knitters and weavers, and my friend Linda, who is an excellent quilter. I had a question for her because I'm making the binding for the quilt. So hopefully next week we can talk about, bindings for quilts. Or maybe we'll sew a shirt. I might be a little too scared to start the binding. Anyway, I'm not too scared. I'll do it. I'm going to do it. Anyway, year of self-care is still ongoing. Make sure that you are getting those posts up and sharing them. And then in addition to that, we do have next year, we're starting the blanket along with the Pearly Shell Pirates. That's right, a blanket along. I did drag out an old version. Clearly this one doesn't have the ends put in yet. Aren't those pretty ends? Of the blanket along that I had made that had 24 different squares. Oh, the kitty will like this. 24 different squares that we can use for our blanket along. You don't have to use this. You can, of course, use a temperature blanket along. We're going to put up some different options, but if you like this pattern, it is going to be available for free to anybody who is doing our blanket along with Black Sheep and the Pearly Shell Pirates, just because we can. If you're crocheting your blanket, Tina has offered up her grandma's flowered Afghan pattern. And I have linked some more information off the Black Sheep website. You can find it under the Knit and Crochet Along page, which is under events. So go to blacksheepfiberemporium.com, click events, and then click Knit and Crochet Along. I will try to remember to link that in the comments on this video as well as in the description on YouTube. Boy, Marshmallow is just like really happy that I'm loving on him today. Look at this kitty. He's like, yes, yes, love me. So anyway, I wanted to talk about those two things, but now it's time to get started with what we are really getting into today, and that is spinning. So for all of you who have been on the channel before, you know that I love my Kromsky Sonata, that I have a Kromsky Sonata spinning wheel. We are Kromsky dealers, so we carry everything Kromsky. If there's something that's not listed on the website, let me know. We can totally get it. I just didn't list it. That's what it comes down to. Anyway, and it just so happens that this week, the Spinning 101 books by Tom Knisley came in. This is a Stackpole publication, and if you know anything about your books, you'll know that Stackpole is a very reputable crafting publisher. So they have published a lot of different craft books. Oh, Marshmallow's just going to be insistent. Sorry, buddy. I gotta spin now. Anyway, Tom's book is a brand new take on beginning spinning. It's chock full of great information. So if you are a beginning spinner or you've been spinning for a few years, you may want to pick up a copy of this book and see if there isn't something that he can teach you. It does take all of his knowledge from 30 plus years of teaching and spinning and tried to distill it into a nice beginner's book. It's a good size. We've got a soft touch cover. There's color photos. Marshmallow, I love you, but get off my lap. Thank you. He's just going to be really insistent today. Anyway, very nice book, very well written. We do have one extra copy available in the shop, so if you are looking for a new book on spinning, I'm going to recommend this one. All right. Now, for spinning today, I wanted to talk about how I go about preparing a 3-ply. So the first thing that I always do is I choose my roving, I go through my stash, I pick out a braid, because I tend to like roving. I tend to like braids. I don't usually wash, fleece, prep my own fiber. Occasionally I do. Very occasionally I do. But for the most part, what I like is already prepared roving in braids ready to go. And sometimes I spin natural colored rovings. A lot of times though, I want color, and I buy something because I like the name of it or because I like the color of it. That's kind of what happens. I'm a bit of a magpie, and I'm like, oh, shiny, and there we go. That's how I end up with a lot of the roving that I own. Today I picked out a 75-25, so 75% BFL, that would be blue-faced Leicester, which is a breed of sheep. 25% silk roving, that was dyed by my friend Heather, one of the pearly shell pirates. And I weighed it this morning, so I had 116 grams of roving that I weighed after I took off my little tag. It doesn't weigh that much, but it's always good to take those things off. And then I split it into 3 separate pieces, and what I tried to do was make them as even as possible as I was splitting them, and then I went back and reweighed each section to try to get them at about the same 38 to 39 gram range. If you have a finer gram weight scale, that will be helpful to you if you are trying to do what I'm doing. There are different ways to do 3-plies, and there are different ways to work with your color. I tend to split as evenly as I can down the length of my roving so that I can take a piece off each side when I'm trying to do a 3-ply, so that I get very distinct bands of color that mostly follow the way that it was dyed. There are other ways that you can do this, of course. You can just break it into 3 lengths and then ply that all together. But the way that Heather had dyed this one, I thought that it really lent itself well to being pulled into 3 pieces down the length of the entire strip of roving and then spun. Now the other piece of this is I, of course, do not spin my roving like this. Okay? And I don't spin it when it's all compacted as well. So one of the things that I do is I go and I take a box, Amazon box, or you can put it in a basket or a paper bag, whatever makes you happy. And I fluff, hang on, there we go. And I fluff my whole roving, and I fluff it from one end to the other, and then just very gently let it work its way into the box. And I try to keep it nice and open and light and fluffy. And the reason that I do this is because when your roving is dyed, and when it's traveling, I should say, it gets compacted. So it gets compacted from the time that it is, what's the word I want? From the time that it is processed at the mill, to being shipped to your dyer, to going like from the dyer's box to their dye pot, and it is compacted again, and gets washed and dried and compacted again and put into a package that gets shipped to you. And it doesn't really hurt the roving, but it does make it harder to spin. So one of the things that I always do is I go in and I fluff my roving, and I like to fluff my pieces kind of one at a time, and I try to make sure that I make them all the same direction when I'm wrapping them up, so that as I'm fluffing them and pulling them off into my box, that I get the sections of color that line up the way I want. Now there's, like I said, there's different ways that you could do this. Instead of doing a 3-ply, I could do a chain ply. You get essentially the same finish in terms of the roundness of your yarn. However, with a chain ply, you can keep your color runs more intact. And had I chosen to do that, then what would happen with these is I would end up having these repeating chunks of color instead of trying to do, this one has this like pink color on two ends and then has pink and black down the stripe. Yes, my child did pick this again. She loves pink. What can I say? She's all about the pink, people. She loves pink. So she picked yet another pink one for me to spin, and that's fine. I don't love pink, but my child does, so I'm gonna humor her. Whatever. I get to spin my stash. It'll be fine. I do have to watch how many pink rovings I buy, though, because, again, she's the one that loves pink, not so much me. Anyway, I am trying to have just 2 chunks of this orangey pink color at the beginning and end of my finished yarn. So I'm keeping that in mind as I'm going to spin it. If I was pulling this off to do a chain ply and I had broken it into my 3 pieces, I would actually have 2, 3, 4. I would have 4 distinct sections of this pink and orange. So that's something to think about as you are prepping your roving, as you're beginning to spin, is what I want my finished color to look like. You know, the first few skeins that you spin, it's really literally just, oh my God, I'm finally spinning. After that's when you really start thinking about your color play. You can split a roving down the middle and then continue to split it into smaller and smaller sections and do what they call a fractal spin, which is very pretty. It's different. I tend to like to keep my colors more together. Something else that I could have done is, instead of splitting it into 3 pieces to make a 3-ply, I could have just taken my chunks of color off and fluffed them out and spun a full chunk of the pink and orange, and then a chunk all the way down of the rest of my roving until I ended with that pink and orange again. And I could have chain plied that so that I had the same effect as doing a 3-ply, but I kept my colors more distinct. Now, because I am going to be doing a 3-ply, I am going to have more crossover between my color sections on each ply than what I would have if I was doing a true chain ply. But it's something that you just kind of decide on as you go along. It's never wrong. You're never wrong in what you're doing. It just makes each spin a little bit different based on how you choose to break your roving apart and how you choose to spin it. So anyway, now that I have my roving broken into my 3 bundles, so I have the 2 that aren't fluffed yet, and then the one in the box that is clearly fluffed. And it's nice and open, and I have fluffed out my pieces. And I don't like fluff every little piece because I do fluff a little bit as I go. I'm saying fluff a lot, by the way. One of the things that I need to do is make sure that my wheel is now set properly. So when I am not spinning on my wheel, one of the things that I do is I drop my drive band down. So let me move the camera down a little bit so you can see this. Okay, hopefully you can see more of my wheel. I'm gonna tip that a little more. Okay, showing you a little more of my wheel. So when I am not using my wheel, because this is a Sonata, I drop my flyer assembly down so that I don't have any tension on my drive band. And the reason that I do that is because if I leave this up, then it puts tension and stress on my drive band, and that will cause this polyurethane band to wear out faster. So when I get ready to spin, I have to bring my flyer head up a little bit and set it. And it doesn't have to be really high. You don't want a ton of tension on this, so I don't want it up really high like this, okay? You want just enough tension to where your flyer moves easily. And that's clearly moving easily. But not so much tension that you run the risk of breaking your drive band. We want just enough that when you go to treadle, that there's enough friction here to make everything work. And that's true for a lot of wheels, not just this one. Alrighty. Make sure you have your bobbin on. Make sure you've oiled your wheel if you need oil. Make sure that your brake band is correctly assembled and is around your bobbin. So this is our drive band. This is our brake band. The brake band goes on the bobbin. It brakes, as in slows the bobbin. Again, I don't want to crank this all the way up so that my spring is pulled really tight. Most of the time when I'm spinning, I actually don't want very much pull on my hand spun at all. I want just a very small amount of resistance so that I can really control the twist and how much yarn is pulled into my spinning wheel. I don't want the wheel to dictate that. I want to control that. And this is a Scotch tension version. I don't really do much double drive. I tend to like Scotch tension. So anyway, I happen to have the magnetic flyer head on because I adore the magnetic flyer head with the Crown Seat Sonata. And I have a leader on my bobbin, so I can just put it right through my hooks. And I did turn, I don't know, it's kind of a weird thing. I turned one of my sliding hooks on my flyer assembly backwards on both sides of my flyer because as I'm packing my yarn onto my bobbin and I get a little bit further out, sometimes I need the little dab of extra space that I find. Instead of having my guide turned this way, I turn my guide this way. Oops, there we go. So that I have a little extra space here without the round edge of my guide getting in the way, so that when I'm packing my bobbin, I can fit just a little bit more on. I probably shouldn't do that, but I've been doing it for a while. It seems to work, so, you know, to each their own. All right, so just gonna take my, and I do have a cotton leader on here, which I chose on purpose. One, because it lasts longer because it's cotton and I don't have, and because I do put a lot of stress on my bobbins and my leaders. All right, the next thing I'm going to do is make sure that I am headed in the direction that I want. Now I like clockwise spun, counterclockwise plied. I think that is S is clockwise and Z is counterclockwise, but don't quote me on that because I always get those mixed up. And I have a nice big loop on my leader so that I can actually take just a little tiny bit of my fiber and pull it through and sort of hold both and start spinning them. And I want a very fine spin on this because I am doing a 3-ply and I want to end up with something a little finer than fingering weight, trending more towards lace weight. So that is also part of the reason that I made sure that I fluffed. Now I can feel that I have too much pull on my yarn, so I adjusted my brake band to loosen that out. And I tend to do a short forward draw or a modified short forward draw when I'm spinning. I taught myself this is where I'm comfortable, this is where I spin the most. So this is just what I tend to do. You will find that as you start spinning that you will default to a certain weight, unless you're consciously changing your hand motions and changing your whirl. And I mean, you have to do a lot of things to kind of remind yourself that you are not defaulting to your very fine or very thick weight when you're changing. So let me see. This is looking pretty good. Yeah, this is what I want. You can check kind of the twist and the overall appearance of your yarn just by allowing a little dab of your hand spun to twine back on itself. Let's see, what else do I need to tell you? Oh yes. So as you start spinning, begin spinning, you'll find that you have a tendency to try to start with your hand. And if you are having trouble starting with your feet, it can help to practice the start and stop with no yarn whatsoever on your wheel, no roving in your hands, just letting your feet kind of get used to the motion. I'm also sitting just a little too close to my wheel. Oh, that's better. I was trying to make sure I had everything in the frame, and then if you find that you have a section that's a little too thick, you simply stop, draft a little bit, and then start spinning again. I know it's a really scary thing when you start spinning to think about stopping your wheel or breaking. Oh look, I broke. And now I'm just going to lay them back together. As long as the two ends of your fiber are soft and fluffy and open, you will be able to lay them back together and create yarn again with no issues. So that's really the key. If you have broken a piece of your yarn and it doesn't have a fluffy end, you may have to fluff it out with your fingers a little bit in order to get enough space to where the fibers can interlock and grab together to twist. So anyway, those are all of my tips for successful spinning. If you are trying to smooth out your spinning, if you're trying to be more consistent, I can tell you that the more time you put into your prep work and the more open you make your fibers, the better it's going to be in terms of your consistency. You also are not in a race, so it's important to remember that you shouldn't be treadling really, really fast. You're not riding a bike. You are gently treadling your machine. And another thing that can help if you're really overspinning your yarn is to make sure that you have put your flyer on the largest whirl. I actually have the extra small or extra fast whirl on my Kromsky Sonata magnetic flyer head because I like to make lace weight, fingering weight yarns. So I need a flyer and a whirl that is going to spin faster with each revolution of my wheel. But beginning spinners usually need a slower whirl. So, and you may even need the extra slow whirl. I find I use the slower whirls for art yarns because I need to remember not to treadle so much with art yarns. But for everything else, I pretty much use my extra fast whirl. So let's see. Another thing to remember is to keep sliding your guides down. And that's that's most of it. Because I have the Sonata, I do tend to park my yarn over on the brake band peg right here. And then I can walk away from this, and if for some reason this pops apart, it's not a big deal. I can go back to it and pull it off and reattach. And I know this is light and fluffy. You probably can't see that in my hand, but it's light and fluffy. This is clearly light and fluffy. And so I'm just going to lay them together, and there we go. Yarn is being made once again. And the hardest part for me to remember is just that I don't need to treadle really fast, that I need to be more even in my treadling. Putting on a good song that has a nice, even, steady beat in the range that you need it can also be really helpful, because your body will just unconsciously start to follow the beat. So anyway, if you guys have been commenting, I'm sorry I haven't looked at the comments because you're a little bit farther away, and I turned the ring light on today to give us a little extra light to see by. So I am going to check comments now and stop treadling for just a bit. Oh, I need to move that out a little bit. This is getting a little fluffy. And, oh, I haven't missed anybody. Well, that's good. Anyway, so now that I've gone through all of that, hopefully I have mentioned something. Oh, I should change the angle of the video. Hopefully I've mentioned something that has helped someone today on their spinning journey. And if not, well, thanks for listening anyway. before I go, don't forget that next week I will be back. Monday we are going to be stitching one of the, oh, do I still have it up here? I don't think I do. Oh, one of the Kariki Press ornament kits. This is the one I've already made. But we're going to be stitching one of the Kariki Press ornament kits. Super exciting. I did order several of these, so if you were hoping to get one and you did not pre-order, there will be extras. I didn't order a lot of extras though, so keep that in mind. All right. So that's Monday. Monday we're going to be stitching that ornament. Wednesday we'll be downstairs sewing something. I don't know if we're going to do the binding on the quilt. I have 2 quilts that I need to bind, and I've never done it before, so it should be lots of fun. Or if we are going to focus on making another shirt. I have been buying a bunch of knit fabric, so stretchy fabric that I use to make shirts for myself and for Ina. So we might end up making a shirt for Ina if I don't have my quilt binding ready to go. I did my math, and we'll talk about this next week, but I did my math and I cut my strips, so now I have to sew them together and then tidy everything up and trim them, and then I need to press them. So like I have a lot to get done if we're going to start binding a quilt next week. So we'll see exactly where I am in the process. But anyway, don't forget to go post for your year of self-care. It's, free to anybody to enter. I don't really care what you're working on. If you're spinning, knitting, weaving, tatting, doing Mediterranean knotted lace, if you're quilting, whatever, take a picture, hashtag BSFE for Black Sheep Fiber Emporium, or hashtag Black Sheep Fiber Emporium, just so I can find it. And that enters you in the monthly contest. So we have this month and next month, and then that's the end of the year of self-care and the contests. Remember, next year we're doing our blanket along, and this is again my old sample of the blanket that we put together that I'm revamping. So I'm going to kind of rewrite the pattern for fingering weight, and I'm going to make additional squares, so not just the initial 24 that I started with, but I'm going to try to do at least 48 squares, so that if you want to be like me and do your weekly square instead of figuring out what your high and low temperature is for every day and then following that, and I mean, it's fine, totally fine. I don't know, it's just not really what I wanted to do. Like, I don't mind making a blanket, I'll make a blanket, but what I really want are my squares. So I'm going to do a square every week that is either based on my high or my low, and put those in my quilt. Well, it is kind of a quilt. I don't know. Anyway, my blanket. So that's kind of my plan for next year. So anyway, don't forget about that. You can find out more in our Facebook group. You can also find out more on our website, blacksheepfiberemporium.com. Just go to events and then click knit and crochet along, and it'll tell you more about both the knit and crochet along version of this, as well as if you go to our blanket along with Black Sheep and the Pearly Shell Pirates, which is still an open group, so you should be able to find that at this time, because it's still an open group and you can join. So lots of fun there. What else do I need to tell you? Yep, so if you pre-ordered books, they are starting to come in, and I'm trying to get these out. So if you haven't pre-ordered a book and you see one that you'd like, let me know. I have been adding lots of books and lots of fun Japanese things to the website. I did talk to our Japanese suppliers by email yesterday or this morning. I can't remember. Everything flows together now. I have an almost 3-year-old. Everything flows together. Anyway, and that shipment will be on its way very soon, so cross your fingers. That will be winging out to you hopefully by Thanksgiving, if everything goes well. It might be just after, but my goal is to hopefully have it, in everybody's hands by Thanksgiving, so that you can have fun things to do while you are spending time with family, whether you want to or not. Anyway. Oh, I don't know. Is there anything else I need to tell you guys? I don't think so. I think that's pretty good. I'll try to get our list of things that we're going to do in December up soon and let you know what the plans are there. But until I see you next Monday, as I always say, take care of yourself mentally, physically, emotionally, and craftually. And, you know, even if you only do 10 or 15 minutes of crafting every day, try to fit in just that little bit. I think it'll really help you, and it really helps me just to feel like I am a calmer, more productive person. just that little bit helps me every single day. So anyway, until next time, take care of yourself. I hope you enjoy your spinning, and that something I talked about today will help you on your spinning journey. And I might just go settle in and spin up a single because I have it all ready to go. And maybe the cat will leave me alone so that I can get that done. Anyway, until next time, take care of yourself, and I will, I'll see you Monday. Okay? All right. Bye.